No one teaches you how to leave. They teach you how to stay, how to work it out, how to be patient, how to forgive, try harder, be the bigger person. But what if the bravest thing isn't staying? What if the real strength is in knowing when enough is enough? You don't always recognize the moment you start shrinking. Sometimes it's gradual. You apologize more even when you didn't do anything wrong. You quiet your opinions to avoid tension. You tiptoe through conversations, afraid of saying the wrong thing. You start editing yourself piece by piece until you don't even sound like you anymore. That's not growth, that's erasure. And still you stay because walking away feels selfish. Because you worry you're giving up. Because you tell yourself that things aren't that bad. Because part of you still believes that loyalty means sacrificing your peace. But here's the truth. No one tells you, you can love someone deeply and still need to leave. You can be grateful for a job, a friendship, a relationship, and still know it's no longer right for you. You can respect what was and recognize what is. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself and the other person is to walk away before resentment takes root. Before you lose yourself trying to make something work that's already broken. Before the cost of staying outweighs what you're trying to save. It doesn't always come with a big betrayal. Sometimes it's a slow buildup of small ways you stop feeling like yourself. You don't laugh as much, you don't dream as big. You start surviving instead of living. That's the signal. You don't have to wait for things to become unbearable. You don't need a dramatic exit or a perfect excuse. You don't need everyone to understand. You just need to listen to the part of you that's tired. The part of you that's been whispering, "This doesn't feel like home anymore." Leaving isn't a failure. Sometimes it's the only way to make space for the version of you who's ready to grow. Sometimes it's the beginning of finally hearing your own voice again, unfiltered, unapologetic, whole, and yes, it's hard. Because the unknown is scary, but staying where you don't belong won't make it any less unknown. It just makes it more painful. So if you're wondering whether it's time to walk away, maybe the better question is, what will it cost me to stay? The moment you start shrinking is the moment to start listening. Because you deserve a life that fits you, not one that constantly asks you to fit into it. We're taught to wear loyalty like armor, to stick it out, to keep showing up even when it hurts. Because being loyal is supposed to be noble. It means you care. It means you're strong. It means you're not a quitter. But there's a fine line between loyalty and self-betrayal. And that line gets crossed the moment you start choosing someone else's comfort over your own truth. You stay because you don't want to be seen as unreliable. You stay because you think leaving means you didn't try hard enough. You stay because you've already invested so much time, love, and energy, it feels like a waste to walk away. But here's the reality: time spent is not the same as time valued. And love given doesn't mean you owe someone your life in return. Sometimes, the longer you stay, the further you drift from yourself. You compromise your values to avoid conflict. You lower your standards because raising them feels like asking for too much. You silence your gut because speaking up might cost you the relationship. That's not loyalty. That's erasing who you are to keep someone else comfortable. And it happens in all kinds of relationships: romantic, platonic, professional. You don't want to disappoint. You don't want to burn a bridge. You don't want to be that person who walks away. But what if staying is the thing that's doing the damage? Sometimes we cling to a commitment because we fear what it means about us if we let go. We don't want to be seen as selfish. We don't want to break a promise. We don't want to admit that something we once believed in no longer fits. But here's the truth: outgrowing something doesn't mean you failed it. It means you honored your own evolution. You're allowed to walk away when staying costs you your peace. You're allowed to put yourself first without guilt. You're allowed to choose growth over loyalty to something that's no longer growing with you. There will be people who don't understand. That's okay. They don't have to live with your choices. You do. And the choice to walk away isn't a betrayal, it's a boundary. So ask yourself, am I staying because I'm loyal to this, or because I'm afraid to be loyal to myself? You deserve relationships that expand you, not ones that ask you to shrink for the sake of staying. Hope can be beautiful. It's what carries us through the hardest times. It tells us things can change, that people can grow, that love can find its way back. But hope, unchecked, can also become a trap. It convinces you to hold on longer than you should. It tells you to wait just one more day, one more week, one more apology. It tells you, maybe this time, things will be different. So you stay, not because you're happy, but because you hope you'll be happy again. You replay the good memories. You latch onto the smallest sign of progress. You excuse the bad days because the good days still sparkle in your mind. But here's the truth. Hope can blind you to patterns. It can make you ignore how many chances you've already given, how much of yourself you've bent to keep something intact. You don't want to give up on someone. You don't want to look like you didn't believe in them. You don't want to feel like you abandoned what could have been. But ask yourself, is the version of this that you're hoping for actually real, or is it just a highlight reel of who they used to be, or who you hoped they'd become? There's a difference between patience and denial, between faith and fantasy. And when you're in something that keeps wounding you, hope stops being healing and starts being harmful. Letting go of hope doesn't mean you've become bitter. It doesn't mean you never cared. It means you finally realized that no amount of hope can fix what someone else refuses to change. You can hope for someone's healing without holding yourself hostage in their chaos. You can wish them well from a distance. You can still believe in their potential, even if it's not your job to wait for them to reach it. It's okay to say, I loved what this was and I hoped it could be more, but I love myself too much to stay stuck in that hope forever. You are not walking away from love. You are walking away from pain wearing the mask of possibility. That takes courage. That takes clarity. That takes a different kind of hope, the kind that says, I believe there's more for me than this. And there is. There's a moment, after all the debating and doubting and delaying, when it hits you. You're done. Not out of anger, not out of revenge, but out of exhaustion. You've tried. You've stayed longer than you should have. You gave grace, patience, second chances, until they stopped meaning anything. And now, the idea of leaving doesn't feel impulsive. It feels quiet, clean, true. That's how you know. When goodbye isn't a reaction, it's a release. When peace doesn't come from one more fix, it comes from letting go. But even then, you hesitate. Because walking away means stepping into the unknown. It means mourning what could have been. It means facing the silence that follows the end. That silence can be deafening. It echoes with all the versions of you that tried so hard to make it work. It holds the grief of who you were in that space, how much of yourself you gave. But it also holds freedom. Freedom from walking on eggshells. Freedom from wondering if you're too much or not enough. Freedom from the constant loop of self-questioning and over-explaining. The freedom on the other side of goodbye isn't always instant. Sometimes it comes slowly in breaths you didn't know you were holding. In mornings that don't start with anxiety. In moments where you feel yourself coming back into focus, you start remembering who you were before the shrinking. You rediscover what it's like to trust your voice, to take up space again. And maybe, most importantly, you start believing that staying true to yourself doesn't make you selfish. It makes you sovereign. Walking away is not a failure. It's not giving up. It's choosing yourself in a world that constantly asks you to choose everything else. It's saying, this chapter has taught me what it needed to, and then putting the pen down. Not because there wasn't love, but because love alone isn't enough when it costs you your peace. You don't owe anyone an explanation that costs you your healing. You don't have to convince anyone why you left. You only have to honor the voice inside you that said, it's time. And when you do, that's when the freedom begins. Not loud, not dramatic, but honest. And yours.